Okay, so here goes another anonymous story time. Am I wrong for calling my girlfriend a bitch and telling her to leave my house? So I'm a 24-year-old man and I have a girlfriend who is 23 and we've been together for about 4 months. A lot of people, including my family, says she's needy and she's bratty, but overall she's accepted by everyone. Recently, she's been asking to meet my closest friends because a lot of them are females and she says that they're a competition. I told her that wouldn't be a good idea because she gets possessive and jealous easily. I told her that she shouldn't feel any type of way because I've been friends with them for 19 years and I don't want anything other than friendship from them. But last week I got a text message from one of them asking if they could all come to my house, and of course I said yes. My girlfriend had no idea that they were coming over and was totally unaware of the situation. Well, when she saw them, she started screaming at everyone because she thought that I was cheating on her with them. My friends reassured her that we were all just friends and they saw me as their brother. Instead of listening, my girlfriend lost it. She started screaming racist remarks at one of them and I was Okay, so here goes part 2 to the anonymous story time. Am I wrong for calling my girlfriend a bitch and telling her to leave my house? So once my girlfriend saw my friends at my house, she started screaming racist remarks at one of them. She yelled at one of my friends to go back to China and mind her own business, and I was shocked because it was racist and it was also really dumb. Also, not to mention, my friend is Vietnamese and not Chinese. After my girlfriend said that, my friend walked right up to her and punched her in her face, and my girlfriend ran towards me screaming at me to choose her or my friends. I told her that we should go home and talk about all this, but she started screaming and my friend stood there and laughed at the whole situation. This made my girlfriend so mad and she had enough and walked into the kitchen and grabbed a knife, but before she could do anything, I stopped her. I asked her what the fuck she was doing and she didn't say anything. She was just so mad. She kept screaming at me about how I had to choose her or my friends. I told her that wasn't the time and place to do all that and she should just chill out and stop. She kept screaming and screaming, so I yelled at her to get out of my fucking house, you crazy ass bitch, and she stood there in shock. She dropped the knife and I told her to get out before I called the police and she ran out crying. Haven't talked to her since then and all of her family are saying that I'm an asshole and I should have chosen her over some stupid friends. Am I wrong? Okay, so here goes another anonymous story time. Am I wrong for pressing charges on my sister and putting her in jail? I know that sounds wild, but this is how I found out my sister was crazy as fuck. So I'm a 22-year-old male and my sister is 19, and this happened when I was just chilling at my friend's house. I was with my girlfriend and a couple of my guy friends and we were just hanging out, having fun and playing video games. By the way, my girlfriend is 3 months pregnant. Anyways, a few hours go by and we start hearing banging and screaming at the door. We open the door and we see that it's my sister and she's standing there butt-ass naked with just a towel on. I was so confused, and before I could process anything, the moment we opened the door, my sister started attacking my girlfriend. She ran over to her, hitting her, calling her a psycho bitch, saying, "You know what you did to me." We're all literally stuck in confusion as to what was going on. I pull my sister off of my girlfriend and my girlfriend explains how they had a talk the other day and my sister spit in her face, getting mad, saying that my girlfriend was taking me away from my family, which definitely is not true. My girlfriend said that as revenge for that, she played a prank on my sister and went and took every single piece of her clothes out of her dorm. It was supposed to just be funny, but as my girlfriend explained that, my sister began picking up things from across the room and started throwing them at my girlfriend. She tried to grab the table. Okay, so here goes part 2 to the anonymous story time. Am I wrong for pressing charges on my sister and putting her in jail? So after my girlfriend said she pranked my sister by taking all of her clothes, my sister tried to pick up a table and throw it at her, but it was too heavy. Instead, she picked up the next closest thing and started throwing it at my girlfriend as hard as she could. I told my sister to stop and get out of the house, but she wouldn't, so I threatened to call the cops on her. My sister was still screaming and cussing, calling my girlfriend a psycho bitch, and somehow she slipped by all of us. My sister began to attack my girlfriend again, and this time she kicked her in the stomach. My girlfriend immediately fell to the floor in pain. Once I saw my girlfriend on the floor, I literally snatched my sister up as hard as I could and threw her out the door and closed it. She started banging on the door again, but we did not let her in. Once my girlfriend got kicked in the stomach, she was on the floor crying hysterically in pain. I knew I had to take my girlfriend to the doctor, but we could not leave because my sister was still outside. About 30 minutes or so later, my sister eventually left and I took my girlfriend to the doctor. After getting checked out, that's when the doctor told us that my girlfriend lost her baby. Both me and my girlfriend were devastated, and I immediately called the police and turned my sister in for what she had done. My sister got arrested and charged with multiple different charges, and she is still currently in jail awaiting trial. Am I wrong for turning my sister in? Okay, so here goes another anonymous story time. This story is about how I found out through Facebook that my best friend was expecting a baby with my fiance. So I met my best friend in kindergarten and we remained best friends throughout college and even after we graduated. When we graduated, my best friend moved about 2 hours away to a nearby larger city for a job opportunity. We still texted each other every day and told each other everything that was going on in our daily lives. My best friend was telling me how exciting it is to live in a bigger city and how she was meeting new guys online and dating apps and even going on a few dates with them. During this time, my fiance was able to recommend good restaurants to her through me because his job often had him traveling to that big city to meet clients. chance. One random day, my best friend sent me a positive pregnancy test, and given the fact that at the time she was single, I was curious as to who the father of the baby was. She said that the father was a guy she had hooked up with from one of the dating apps and that he didn't want anything to do with her or the baby anymore. Well, during her first trimester, my best friend became really distant towards me for the first time in our lives, and it really hurt me a lot. However, what hurt me even more was later on when it came closer to her second trimester, we were only speaking once every few weeks when we used to talk all day, every day. Eventually, it came time to when most people throw a baby shower, and I of course asked her about it and if she was going to hold a baby shower, and she told me no. Obviously, I was a little hurt by this because we always used to talk about planning each other's baby showers and weddings, but I just brushed it off as pregnancy hormones. Well, one day, I don't know what compelled me to do it, but I decided to snoop on her Facebook account after I saw she had been tagged in a post by my fiance's sister. She had only met her one time, so out of curiosity, I clicked on my fiance. Okay, so here goes part 2 to the anonymous story time. I found out through Facebook that my best friend was expecting a baby with my fiance. So I logged on to Facebook and I saw my best friend tagged in a picture from my fiance's sister. Out of curiosity, I clicked on my fiance's sister page, and on her profile, she was tagged in a post by another family member, which I was not friends with. It was a picture of my best friend and my fiance at a baby shower. My fiance was the father of her baby, and they had both been keeping the secret from me the entire time. After snooping around on Facebook and seeing the pictures, I confronted my fiance about this, and he said that he wasn't in the photos and it was actually his brother who was a year older than him. Obviously, he was lying to me, and I couldn't believe he was trying to blame his brother. They do look alike, but I knew it wasn't his brother in the pictures. After confronting my fiance, I then confronted my best friend about this over text message, and I began blowing her up asking how she could do this to me. She went on about how sorry she was and how she hopes I can forgive her, but her and my fiance ultimately decided that they were going to essentially do a private adoption with the couple. So basically, she has become a surrogate to this family, and she used my man to get pregnant, and then basically she is getting paid from the private adoption. I was shocked. I don't know how any of this is going to play out, and my head is still spinning. I don't know what either of them have planned to do with the money or if any of this is even legal. At this point in time, I'm still trying to process everything, and I'm trying to terminate my lease with my fiance early so I can move out and go back home and get away from him. All I know is that she's still pregnant and they're definitely having this baby. Okay, so here goes another anonymous story time. Was I wrong for throwing a pound of ground beef in my neighbor's yard? I know that sounds silly, but my neighbor is vegan. Over the weekend, I had some family and friends come over, and I was barbecuing and grilling for everyone on both Friday and Saturday. We had hot dogs, burgers, chicken, ribs, and all different kinds of meat products. As I'm grilling, my neighbors come outside. I normally have decent interactions with them for the most part, and we've always gotten along. However, this weekend, that all changed. When my neighbors came outside, they obviously smelled the grilling and barbecuing because it was a nice day. A few minutes later, I get a knock on my door, and it's my neighbor, the husband, and he's asking me if I can stop grilling because the smells are irritating his family. I asked him if he was being serious, and he said yes, that he was vegan and the smell of meat cooking makes him physically ill. I honestly didn't know what to say, and my first reaction was to let out a laugh, and once I laughed, he visibly got even more mad. I said, I'm sorry the smells are bothering you, but me and my family are not vegans, and we are going to enjoy our meat products on this nice day. I suggested that maybe he and his family stay inside while I cook, and he got mad again, saying that he and his family wanted to be outside during the nice weather too, and I should be more considerate. I once again told him that I was going to continue grilling, and he walked away and went home. I went back outside to join the rest of my family, and I hear my neighbor angrily tell his family. Okay, so here goes part 2 to the anonymous story time. Was I wrong for throwing a pound of ground beef in my neighbor's yard? So I hear my neighbor angrily tell his family that they have to go back inside and we'll go back out later, and that was the end of it, or so I thought. Next day, which was Saturday, a few of my friends came back over and provided more food to be grilled, and of course I said yes because the weather was amazing. My neighbor and his family were already outside playing when I began to grill, and almost immediately he started shouting about how it smells like shit and that I'm a horrible neighbor for not respecting them being vegans. And this started a shouting match. I told him I don't care what vegetables and dirt he eats, he shouldn't care what I'm feeding my family, and to leave us the fuck alone. After a few minutes of shouting, my neighbor's family went back inside, and I once again thought that was the end of it. However, when I woke up Sunday morning and went outside, my grill was gone. I immediately knew my neighbor had taken it, so when I went to go knock on his door, he didn't answer. Obviously, I was angry and annoyed that he didn't answer his door, so I went back home and I went into my fridge and opened a package of ground beef and began throwing it in chunks over the fence into my neighbor's yard. I literally scattered it everywhere, so it was all over his yard. I waited an hour to see if my neighbor was gonna say anything, and he still didn't. So I then left a note on his front door saying, enjoy the meat, and I still haven't gotten my grill back, and I don't know if they found the meat yet. Was I wrong? Okay, so here goes another anonymous story time. I need some advice. I just found out that my husband has a 2-year-old with another woman. So I've been married to my high school sweetheart for 2 years now, and we're both 27 years old. He works as an attorney and makes a good amount of money, and I'm pregnant with his child, and I'm now 5 months along. My whole pregnancy, he has been distant with me, which he's never been like before, and he's always usually clingy and touchy with me. And it's not like he doesn't want me to be pregnant, because he's been talking about having a baby for a while now. But again, now that I'm pregnant, he's been at work a lot more often and isn't home a lot. I don't know anything about working as an attorney, so I never question it. I also don't have a job, and I stay at home, so I need him to make good money for the both of us. Well, one random day, I got a text from a woman asking me to meet up. However, I just blocked her because I didn't know who she was. But the following day, I decided to go to my husband's work office. When I got there, he was talking to some woman who ended up being the same woman who had messaged messaged me and they looked like they seemed to be arguing. My husband still hadn't seen me, so I decided to walk right up to them and ask what was wrong. When he saw me, he immediately pulled me away and asked me why I was there, and I told him, why does it matter? I'm just coming to see you. And when I said that, he seemed to have a panic expression on his face, and when I was about to walk out, the lady he was talking to came up to me and started talking so rapidly. The first thing she said was that she has a 2-year-old son and my husband is the father. Okay, so here goes part 2 to the anonymous story time. I need some advice. I found out my husband has a 2-year-old with another woman. As I was about to leave, the lady came up to me and told me that she has a 2-year-old son and my husband is the father. I was so shocked and confused, and then she showed me a DNA test she took of my husband and her son, and it showed that my husband was his father. But I honestly didn't believe it, and I told her to take another one so I could see it. I then yelled and cussed my husband out for cheating on me because prior to our marriage, we have been dating for around 6 or 7 years. However, he was adamant that he wasn't cheating and that the lady was lying. Once the second DNA test came back, it confirmed that my husband was the father. I asked the lady to see a picture of her child, and my husband and the child look literally identical. I truly believe the lady, and I'm so upset about all of this. However, I feel like if I divorce him, my baby and I will be on the streets because I don't work, and I really don't know what to do. Also, my husband doesn't seem upset or guilty one bit. He honestly actually seems interested in his son and that lady now. And on top of that, when he found out my baby was a girl, that's when he seemed less interested in me. I really need some advice about this. Okay, so here goes another anonymous story time. Am I wrong for telling my best friend that I won't apologize to his girlfriend? So I have been friends with this guy since the 6th grade. Let's call him Dave. I am now 20 years old and he is 19. He's been in a relationship with his girlfriend for 5 years now, and they met in high school, which both me and Dave attended together. Throughout the years, me and his girlfriend seemed to get along pretty well. She was kind to me and didn't see me as a rival because she knew that me and Dave thought of each other as family. Me and Dave ended up at different colleges, and we would hang out every couple weeks just to stay in contact with each other. We would go to restaurants or the mall, and his girlfriend never had a problem with this. Also, I have to point this out. All my life I've been fat and I've always been big and was never called pretty or deemed attractive because of my weight. Well, once I entered college, I decided I wanted to lose weight and turn my life around. I began exercising and eating more healthy, and over the last 2 years, I've lost 100 pounds. I'm happier than ever, and about a month ago, I asked Dave if instead of hanging out at arcades and restaurants, if he wanted to go to the gym instead. He said yes, he would like that, and his girlfriend was fine with it. So me and Dave started going to the gym, which meant we started seeing each other way more frequently. Dave would usually meet me at the gym, but his car was getting fixed, so I offered to pick him up. Okay, so here goes part 2 to the anonymous story time. Am I wrong for telling my best friend I won't apologize to his girlfriend? When I went to go pick Dave up, his girlfriend took a glance at me and looked at me in a disgusted manner, and I shrugged it off. A few days later, I received a text from her telling me how I'm trying to steal her boyfriend and that she's done with me and no longer wants to speak to me. I asked her why she thought this, and she said that I lost all the weight so that Dave could find me attractive and so that I could make an excuse to see him more by going to the gym. I tried to explain to her that I would never look at Dave in a romantic manner and that she said she was fine with us going to the gym together. She said that she changed her mind after seeing how I dressed around him, and by dress she means I was wearing leggings and a sports bra, which literally anyone would wear to go to the gym. She called me a slut and a homewrecker, and I told her that she was an insecure little girl and she needed to grow up and realize how stupid she looked. I told her she would never have said any of this if I was still fat. She then blocked me, and a few minutes later I got a phone call from Dave yelling at me for talking to his future wife like that. I told him what happened, and he said that he couldn't take my side because his girlfriend would be furious. He said I should just apologize because he doesn't want our friendship to end like this. However, I refused to apologize, and I've been ignoring him since. Am I wrong for choosing not to apologize to her? Okay, so here goes another anonymous story time. Am I wrong for getting a mom and her baby kicked out of a movie? So ever since I was a kid, I've been a really big fan of the Jurassic Park movies, and I've always tried to watch all of them in theaters to get the full experience. When I heard this new movie was coming out, I immediately set a reminder on my phone to buy the tickets as soon as they went on sale at my local movie theater, and I was so excited. I got my tickets and I've been anxiously waiting. I work a really stressful job, and the only thing that got me through the day was thinking about watching this movie since I had a pretty shitty day. As soon as I got off work, I drove to the theater, and when I got there, I got my snacks and went in to watch the preview. I work a lot and often don't have time to myself, so I was happy to be there and ready to enjoy a good movie. About 15 minutes into the movie, a mom came in carrying a giant car seat, and in my head I was praying she wouldn't take the only 2 seats left in the whole theater, which were right next to me. Of course she did, and before she even sat down all the way, I could hear the baby was getting fussy, and I just tried to ignore it. The baby kept fussing for the next 30 minutes or so, but I tried to ignore it. There was a part in the movie that got really loud, and I think it scared the baby because it started crying very loudly, and it was ear-piercing loud. I thought maybe that the mom would leave to calm the baby down and return, but she didn't, and the baby kept crying for a solid 10 minutes, and everyone in the theater kept looking at the mom, but she was too busy watching the movie and wasn't even trying to comfort her child. I couldn't take it anymore. I left the theater to go find someone who could help me. I found a worker, and they called their manager, who went into the theater, and Okay, so here goes part 2 to the anonymous story time. Am I wrong for getting a mom and her baby kicked out of a movie? Well, after I got the manager, I followed behind him into the movie theater. He went up to the mom and crying baby, who still hadn't stopped crying, and told her that she had to leave because the baby was being too loud. I could tell that she immediately got angry angry, and I think she figured out that I told on her because as she was walking out, she gave me a mean look and called me a bitch. Didn't say anything back to her, but I really don't understand why she got mad at me because she obviously had to know that her baby was being a distraction and ruining the movie for everyone else, so I don't know what she expected me to do. After she left, everyone clapped and cheered. They then rewinded the movie a little bit to make up for what we had missed. The lady and her baby never came back, and after the movie, I was telling my friends via our group chat about the experience and what happened. While they all agreed with me that it's really annoying when kids are loud during movies, they think that I might have been the asshole for saying something, but I don't think so. I explained to them how I discreetly told someone and didn't make a scene, but they still said I was the asshole for it. Was I wrong to get her kicked out of the movies? Okay, so here goes another anonymous story time. Am I wrong for letting my niece and nephew use my wife's art supplies? So my wife is an amazing artist and has had her work at exhibits all over the country. She also works at our local community college teaching painting and does local commissions every now and then. A few days ago, my sister came to visit with my niece and nephew who are 10 and 7, and they have always shown interest in my wife's art and even told her that they want to be artists someday. My wife was still at work when my sister and I were just catching up on family drama, and my niece and nephew came up to me and asked if they could borrow some paint so they could do art. I didn't think much of it, and I said yes, that they could borrow my wife's paint. Well, my wife came home about an hour later, and after saying hi to my sister, she asked where the kids were so she could say hi, and I told her that they were in her studio. Her studio was just a little shed in our backyard that we transformed, and she looked pissed off since she hates when people go in there and mess with her stuff, but I didn't think much of it because I consider my niece and nephew to be really good kids. She went outside to her shed, and around 5 minutes later, my niece and nephew came running inside covered in paint and told us my wife was really mad and was being mean and yelling at them. I ran outside a little pissed off at her because I don't think she has the authority to yell at them like that, and I could tell that my sister was mad too. I went outside to talk to my wife, and as soon as I stepped in the studio, she started yelling at me, showing me the mess the kids had made, and I could tell that she was close to tears. She then showed me how they had ruined one of her commission pieces that she had been working on for months. She told me that my sister was going to have to repay for every single one of the paints. Okay, so here goes part 2. It's the anonymous story time. Am I wrong for letting my niece and nephew use my wife's art supplies? After my niece and nephew came inside crying, I went outside to talk to my wife. As soon as I stepped in her studio, she began to show me how my niece and nephew had ruined one of her commission pieces that she had been working on for months. It was a portrait of the mayor's mom. His wife had commissioned my wife to paint last year, and she had been working on it ever since, and it meant a lot to her. She then told me my sister was going to have to repay every single one of the paints, brushes, and canvases that my niece and nephew ruined. She also said my sister had to pay the price of the commission piece since she wasn't going to be able to finish it because the deadline was getting too close and it was completely ruined. I told her she was being ridiculous and doing too much, and the only thing my sister was going to do was make her kids apologize for what they did. I also told her that I had let them use her paint supplies because I didn't think it was that big of a deal. However, my wife said absolutely not, and that if I didn't make my sister pay the full amount, which was close to $8,000, I would have to, and if not, she would file for divorce. We got into a huge argument, and she has since left our house and is staying with her parents, but I think she's overreacting. Was I wrong to let them play with her art supplies? Okay, so here goes another anonymous story time. Am I wrong for refusing to buy more groceries after my boyfriend's cousins and brother ate everything out of our fridge? So my boyfriend and I moved in together 6 months ago. However, we've been dating for 3 years. He owns this house, and when I moved in, he said I didn't have to pay rent, but I had to help with some of the bills around the house, which I do. I take care of the electric, water, internet, and food. Every Sunday I go to Sam's Club and I get enough food to last us 2 weeks because I hate going to the store for just one thing during the week. I also always get double or triple of everything, so we have extra in the house. Well, my boyfriend told me that his 3 cousins and brother, all around the age of 16, would come spend a week with us during the summer. I said okay, and I did my usual grocery shopping plus a little extra, and my total came out to be a little over $400, which was a lot, but I wanted them to have enough food for the week. I stocked up the fridge and the cabinets, and yesterday when I got home, I went to the fridge to grab a soda, and the fridge was completely empty. There was no soda, no juice, no yogurt, or even tea left in our drink compartment, and I found it weird since it was stocked up the night before. I then opened the rest of the fridge, and it was literally empty, just a few vegetables, sour cream, and tortillas left. The pantry was also empty with none of the chips, bread, or snacks I had. Okay, so here goes part 2 to the anonymous story time. Am I wrong for refusing to buy more groceries after my boyfriend's cousin and brother ate everything in our fridge? So when I checked the pantry, it was equally as empty as the fridge with none of the chips, breads, or snacks I had gotten the day before. I honestly didn't know what to say to the kids, so I didn't say anything, and I waited for my boyfriend to get home. When he did, he also tried to get a soda from the fridge and didn't find anything and came to me asking why I didn't go grocery shopping the day before so his cousins had something to eat. I told him I did go grocery shopping and I got so much stuff and that they had eaten every single thing. My boyfriend asked them why they ate everything and they just said that they were hungry. After talking to his cousins and brother, my boyfriend then proceeds to ask me when I was going grocery shopping again. I was confused and I told him I was not buying any more food because that had been close to what I usually spend on food for the entire month. I said I was not going to spend that every single day if his cousins and brother wanted to be pigs and eat that much every single day for the rest of the week. My boyfriend told me that it was my responsibility for the groceries since I don't pay for rent, and if I wasn't going to buy more food, I could move out. And once he said that, I immediately started packing and he called me a bitch and that I was being petty. He said he couldn't believe that I was moving out because I didn't want to buy buy more groceries. Was I wrong? Okay, so here goes another anonymous story time. Am I wrong for refusing to let my husband pay for my sister-in-law's graduation dinner? So my husband lost his job about 6 months ago and he's been too lazy to find something else. All he does is stay home and play video games, but we're still getting a steady income because of my job. Not only does he do nothing all day, but he also never told his family that he lost his job and has been lying for months pretending that he's still working, and while this is okay at first, his family is bleeding me dry. My father-in-law passed away a few years ago, and ever since then, my husband has stepped up and began paying his mom's bills so that she can sit on her ass all day too. My husband also put my sister-in-law through college, but since he lost his job, all of that has been coming out of my pocket and my savings. My sister-in-law finally graduated after finishing her 4-year degree in 6 years because she's a dumbass, and to celebrate, my mother-in-law wanted to take her and her boyfriend out to dinner, so we did. Before we left the house, my husband reminded me not to mention the fact that he doesn't have a job and told me to give him my debit card to put in his wallet since his bank account was empty. We got to the restaurant that my sister-in-law chose. There was a little group of people around her which turned out to be her friends, and in total there were 15 of us. Most of them we had never seen before, and they didn't even say a word to us. My husband and I sat in a little corner of the table while everyone else ignored us. Since the restaurant she chose was a really expensive steakhouse, I knew we were looking at a $400 ticket for my sister-in-law, mother-in-law, her boyfriend, and me and my husband. 3 of them weren't holding back on drinks, and as the night went on, I started getting furious. When everyone was done eating, the waitress came and asked us how we were going to split the check, and I told her it was just the 5 of us on one ticket, and as soon as I said that... So here goes part 2 to the anonymous story time. Am I wrong for refusing to let my husband pay for my sister-in-law's graduation dinner? After I told the waitress it was just us 5 on our ticket, everyone turned to look at us and look at my sister-in-law, and she looked confused. That's when I realized she had told them that we were going to pay for their food. My sister-in-law said, "What do you mean you're not going to pay for it?" And I asked her if she really thought we were going to pay for 10 random strangers at one of the most expensive places in our city. She turned to look at my husband, who was about to hand the waitress my debit card before I snatched it out of his hand. My mother-in-law started screaming at me, saying I couldn't do that because my husband was paying, and that's when I lost it, and I told her that her son hadn't had a job in months. It had been me who was paying her bills and putting her dumbass daughter through college. I handed the waitress my card and told her I was only paying for me and my husband. My husband then made a stupid comment, and I forgot what he said because of how mad I was, but I ran after the waitress, telling her it was actually just me on my bill, and left her a hefty tip for the inconvenience. I left alone, and as soon as I got in my car, I deactivated all my debit and credit cards I knew my husband had on his Apple Pay. My husband came home later that night and didn't say anything to me and has been sleeping in the guest room since all this happened. We haven't talked in 2 weeks. My mother-in-law leaves me voicemails that my sister-in-law had to borrow money from one of her friend's dad, and she's humiliated. I'm wondering if I should have just paid that night because my marriage is not going to survive this. Was I wrong? Okay, so here goes another anonymous story time. Am I wrong for throwing my boyfriend's grandma's ashes when we were fighting? I know that sounds horrible, but let's start from the beginning. Me and my boyfriend have been together for 6 months and we love each other a lot, but we fight constantly. I know it's not healthy, but we always break up and get back together. In the beginning of our relationship, everything was fine, but we started fighting more and more, and he would just break up with me and leave me. I would beg and beg on my knees for him to not break up with me and leave me. Also, during all of this time, I was pregnant with his baby, but we ended up not keeping it. Anyways, I'll get to the point. When we started fighting more and more, he began to put his hands on me and started throwing me around and threw all my stuff around the house. On this particular day, I was taking a nap and he woke me up and we started fighting. He started throwing my makeup and personal belongings everywhere, and before I could leave, he left the house. I was so mad, I grabbed the first thing I could and I threw it on the ground. Well, it ended up being his grandma. I quickly vacuumed her up and I didn't say a word to my boyfriend. It's now 4 days later and things between us are okay, but I still feel guilty because he doesn't know. Was I wrong to throw his grandma? Okay, so here goes another anonymous story time. Am I wrong for kicking my husband out of my house for not taking care of my brother? So my older brother is paralyzed from his waist down due to an accident that occurred when we were kids. I married my husband a little over a year ago, and I make enough money for my job to buy a big house and support the both of us and my brother. My husband still has a job and he works from home, and since he works from home and is always free, I asked him to take care of my brother as my brother has difficulty doing simple things. My husband agreed to this. Also, my parents live nearby but are too old to take care of my brother. Anyways, for the last few weeks, I've noticed some changes in my brother's behavior. He used to be very bubbly and just a happy person, but he has been super uncomfortable and scared. So I decided to install cameras without my husband knowing. I left the house as I normally would to go to work, and after work I went to check the cameras and I see that my husband plays video games all day and leaves my brother in the living room all by himself. I watched the video for hours, and that's where I saw my brother struggle to get the remote and even struggle to reach for food. I also saw him fall out of his wheelchair, and when my brother asked for help, my husband yelled at him to figure it out himself. I was disgusted and I completely lost it. I called my husband into the room and I showed him the video. I told him that he has 5 minutes to pack and get the fuck out. Okay, so here goes part 2 to the anonymous story time. Am I wrong for kicking my husband out of the house for not taking care of my brother? So after I watched the videos and I saw my brother fall out of his wheelchair and my husband do nothing to help, I completely lost it. I was disgusted. I called my husband into the room and I showed him the video. I told him he has 5 minutes to pack his shit and get the fuck out, or else I will be calling the police. He said, "Oh, come on, it's not that big of a deal," and I was in tears because I felt so bad and so sad for my brother. But eventually my husband did leave. I then hired a nurse for my brother and I didn't tell her there were cameras in the house. She's been doing a great job so far, but now here is where I need some advice. In my country, divorce is extremely disgraceful and is considered a shameful act. If I divorce my husband, then it might affect my work and I could lose my job. However, I refuse to take my brother to a disabled home and I want him to stay with me. It's the least I can do because I feel guilty since the accident was because of me when we were younger. I truthfully don't want anything to do with my husband and I want to divorce him ASAP. But if I lose my job over this divorce, then I won't be able to take care of my brother and support him and myself. So what do? Do I go to the police and tell on my husband for what he did to my brother? Or do I divorce him and risk it all? Am I wrong for kicking him out of the house? Okay, so here goes part 3 to the anonymous story time. Am I wrong for kicking my husband out of the house for not taking care of my brother? So after everything that happened, I reported my ex-husband to his company and basically he got demoted. He now lives with his sister and her husband and their 3 kids. He has been trying to apologize, but I never want to see him again and I just want to divorce him. I did end up losing my job, but I found a way better job at a different company and my current boss completely understands my situation and is willing to help me. Unfortunately, I could not press charges or build a case against my ex-husband. I apologized to my brother over and over and he blamed himself for what happened. My brother wanted to go to a disabled home after finding out me and my husband were getting divorced, but I insisted that he stayed and it wasn't his fault. My brother is so much better now and back to his normal self. And that nurse I hired is literally his best friend now. I also just want to say that I never forced my husband to take care of my brother. He willingly agreed to take care of him even though hiring a nurse was always an option. Really had expected my husband to be nice and respectful towards my brother because my brother had paid for our wedding, but I guess not. Though this has been a shitty situation, with my new job now, I actually have more time to spend with my brother and I'm so happy about it. My ex-husband will now never see us again. Okay, so here goes another anonymous story time. Am I wrong for installing cameras in my home? So a little background information. I'm a 26-year-old female and I've been married to my husband who is 34 for about 2 years. We dated 4 years prior to the marriage and I felt like we rushed into things, but I brushed it off. Well, about 2 weeks ago, I've been seeing changes in my husband of how he's acting really rude towards me and my sister. He's been bossing us around a lot lately and saying that since we're women, we should be doing housework and he doesn't have to since he's a man. By the way, he's living in my house. I pay for most of everything and I make good money while he works from home 2 days a week and spends the rest of his time playing video games. My sister lives with us due to my parents kicking her out of the house because she got pregnant at 18. She's now 24 and she has a beautiful little girl, my niece. Honestly, I work a lot, so I'm barely home, but from what I hear from my sister, he has been bossing around her 6-year-old daughter to get him beer from his fridge every single day and do what he says. I love and trust my sister, but I really couldn't believe what I was hearing, so I decided to install cameras and see for myself. Sadly, it was true and I'm so mad. Not only that, but he's been making my niece cook for him and she burned herself while doing it and he yelled at her for it. He said he was gonna get in trouble for her burning herself and I immediately rushed home. Okay, so here goes part 2 to the anonymous story time. Am I wrong for installing cameras in my home? Well, after I installed the cameras, I found out that my husband has not only been bossing us around, but he's been making my 6-year-old niece cook food for him and she burned herself doing it. He also yelled at her and said he was gonna get in trouble for it. After seeing that, I immediately rushed home to tell him that he had 15 minutes to pack all his shit and get out of my house. He was completely caught off guard and confused and he started yelling and I yelled back at him saying this was my house and I will not hesitate to call the police on you. He eventually started packing her stuff and he's been staying at his parents' house for 2 weeks now. He's now decided to lock himself in his parents' home and texted my sister threatening her and her daughter and texted me too. Then get a call from my mother-in-law and she's never been a big fan of me and she was calling me saying I was acting childish and petty for installing cameras and my niece needed to learn discipline and taught how to be a good wife. I was so shocked when she said this. Although I've never gone along with her, I do love my father-in-law because he's super sweet and has taken my side with all of this. Was I really in the wrong for setting up cameras in my own home? Okay, so here goes another anonymous story time. Am I wrong for having my husband walk to work after he got his license suspended? So my husband and I have been together for almost 8 years and we've been married for 2. I've known since the beginning of our relationship that he has had trouble with speeding tickets. For a while, he would only get 1 ticket a year until about 2 years ago. He got a part-time job doing pizza deliveries and he began to start driving more recklessly. I mean, almost every single day I would hear him say, I got pulled over again, or he would tell me that he got complaints from his managers about his driving. All he said is that he just wanted to make sure that the people who would order pizza got it in a timely manner. And even last year, he was driving and we needed to get our infant daughter home to put her to bed and he got pulled over going 50 miles over the speed limit. He really could have gotten arrested that night, but the officer gave him a ticket and a court summons and he managed to get away from any repercussions from that court date. He ended up getting a couple more speeding tickets later that year as well, and earlier this year, he ended up totaling his vehicle while on a delivery. This really made me mad because my parents had loaned us the money for this vehicle. He got mad at me when I told him I wouldn't let him take my car to do deliveries as I work and I couldn't take the risk of him ruining my car, and he called me a stupid and selfish bitch for it. Well, one day I saw a letter from the DMV addressed to him and I asked him what it was about, and he told me it was for some fees he needed to pay. Okay, so here goes part 2 to the anonymous story time. Am I wrong for having my husband walk to work when he got his license suspended? Once I saw the letter from the DMV, I asked him what it was about and he told me it was about some fees he needed to pay. But I knew his ass was lying, so after he went to bed that night, I did some digging around and I found out that he was getting his license suspended for 30 days days due to the points he acquired from tickets. I confronted him about it and he admitted that he wanted to tell me later to avoid me getting mad at him. But honestly, I was more pissed at him telling someone else before me. Anyways, when his suspension had started, I told him I wasn't going to drive him to work as he had to be there at 5 a.m. and it wouldn't be fair to wake up our daughter that early. He once again called me a selfish bitch and said I'm throwing him to the wolves by not helping him. I said it was his problem that his license got suspended, but I told him I would at least pick him up when he got off from work, but getting to work would be his own problem. Well, he ended up walking to work for the next 30 days with getting occasional rides here and there from his coworkers. My parents even offered to get him a bike, but he rejected the idea. Now he's still salty that he had to walk during that time, but I reminded him he was the one who got himself in that situation, not me. He says that I should have helped him out more, but I reminded him that I did to the best of my abilities. Was I wrong for making him walk to work?